Hello and welcome back to Rebound with Resilience, a podcast dedicated to raise your resilience, mindset and mental wellness. On this episode, we have come to a very nice place, Caregivers Alliance. Get a vibe here, it's really warm. Okay, I have with me two guests. We're going to chat about a very underemphasized but crucial topic around mental health. That's caregiving. Right, so I just want to say hello to them first.
Hi.
Yeah, before I intro y'all, I think I'll just say hello to y'all. How you doing?
Good. Yeah, happy post CNY.
Yeah, we're really celebrating all the holidays, right? And
Yes.
It's a good break. But sorry to turn the topic so grave suddenly, right? But I guess for caregivers, even this period may not be a time of celebration, right? Because they have to deal with relatives and then they might ask questions about their kid, and then their kid is also very nervous, anxious when visiting other people.
Yeah.
Right, so I think that kind of is an intro to what the challenges of caregiving, which we'll talk about. I was getting an introduction of your first, proper, before we start, okay? So Esther is one of the 4 co-founders of Prepare to Care. It is a communication campaign by NTU Students targeted at caregiving, right? Helping caregivers, especially for youth between 7 to 19 years old, right? Equipping them, giving them the inspiration and the practical tools to help. And Veena, she's a professional counsellor and psychoeducator with 13 years of experience working with people with mental health and addiction issues. She has a degree in psychology, a master's degree in counselling, and she's been working at Caregivers Alliance as the program outreach and program manager for children and youth.
Yeah.
Right? And you provide psychoeducation, emotional support for them.
That's right. Yeah.
And also work with various schools as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, good. I hope I got an intro.
Yeah.
Okay, let's begin. I think today is a very simple outline. I think we're just going to discuss caregiving in general, defining what caregiving, because people think caregiving, they're not sure exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Talk about the problem a little bit and also some solutions. A bit of prelude, right? I'm very passionate and about this topic, right? And grateful to be hosting you all because people come to me all the time, right? Especially some of them parents, and it really, really breaks my heart to see them helpless, right? And from the tone that they're approaching me, you can really tell that they're in a state of they require help, they want support.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy. So I just hope that this podcast can give people a bit of light, a bit of hope at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Okay?
For sure.
Yeah. So, let's begin. Let's define first what caregiving means. Who's considered a caregiver and what is caregiving?
Okay, I just want to set the scene whereby caregiving, actually anyone can be a caregiver. I think someone famous defined it that you can either be a caregiver or a caregiver to be as well in the future context as well. It's just a matter of time when you might actually have to start to care for someone, whether it's they have a physical or a mental health condition in this case that we're talking about. So for us at Cal, we really see caregiving as someone who's actually giving that emotional support, being present, they're listening, they're trying to really be there for the individual. So it's also sometimes accompanying them for appointments, actually making sure that they're doing all right in managing their day-to-day lives as well.
Okay. Is that always the immediate family? Or can it be
So for myself, I work a lot with young people as well in institutes of higher learning. So it can be friends as well. But usually we say family is usually the first sort of circle of support. But of course, friends can be also a very strong motivating factor as well. And they can also wrap around the person who's going through challenges.
Okay. Esther, do you have anything to add?
I think what Veena said was very true. I think in my own experience, having friends around and having that peer support is a very important pillar when it comes to caregiving. And I think for me, the main definition in a sense of a caregiver is someone who would provide emotional support and really empathize and listen to the loved ones and if they have any challenges, any problems that they face. I think that is really a very important aspect of caregiving.
Okay. So it's not just a function of closeness, but also not physical closeness, but also emotional closeness.
Yeah, definitely emotional support, like what Esther emphasized, the empathy is actually a very key element of caregiving.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a good definition. I think we can go into like challenges.
Okay.
Challenges of
Yeah.
caregiving. So again, from research, personal experience, right? Let me start with you, Veena.
Yeah.
What are challenges that caregivers face?
One big challenge caregivers face is stigma. There's still a lot of stigma about mental health, especially for young people. So I think especially in a very competitive Singapore society that we live in, people don't really want to talk about their child having a meltdown or a mental health challenge because they're just worried about how they might be judged and also how they might be perceived by the rest of society as maybe being personality-wise weaker or stuff like that, because there's a lot of misconceptions about mental health still. Yeah, so that's one of the key challenges. They're also worried because sometimes the child may need to take a break from the usual, Singapore trajectory of having to go through from JC to uni to work and all this sort of things. So sometimes they may just need a timeout. So I think sometimes they don't realize that, hey, it's perfectly normal.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
One gap years like 10 years.
Exactly.
In
So
Singapore's context.
yeah, so I think people have to normalize that it's okay to take a break sometime, and you need to also know that there's no reflection on you as a person as well. That's a very important thing.
What about you? Maybe from articles or research that maybe Cal has conducted.
I would say some of the other challenges that caregivers have also faced is that they are also taking on a lot of it on themselves. They're not really having much of a support circle. So burnout is actually a reality for caregivers as well. So we actually try to wrap around them and provide them more skill sets and knowledge about how they can reach out to other people. So at Cal, we're really about a community as well. So when we say that we journey with you, it's really throughout. It's not just a one-time class or a series of sessions, but it's really a journey for the rest of your life with your loved one as well who has the condition.
Yeah. Before handing over to you, Esther, right, just a brief sharing. Also, when I was going through my own struggles after Asia, it's exactly what you talked about, right? The fear of taking a break. Like to me, deferring my NS, I'm being lagged behind even a couple of months, which is ridiculous in hindsight, right? But we're just so conditioned to be relentless in our chase that even a short break to them is like, oh no, my life is over. I guess we'll deep dive into that a little bit later on. But also to add that my parents, while they're caring for me during that moment, it was difficult for them as well. Even they had support from each other. Then maybe from higher power, from their faith. But I would think that if let's say there is a community behind them, that would have been a lot easier also.
Yeah, it definitely would have helped.
Okay, I need with you, Esther. I know the campaign. I know I didn't really elaborate much on Prepare to Care earlier, but their campaign has done really good work. I've seen the videos that you have created, and probably you have done a lot of primary research. Primary and secondary, primary research into it. So I would love to hear like what the methodology is and what are some of the things that you've noticed.
So for our primary research, we actually interviewed experts from CAL. We also interviewed psychologists, clinicians from IMH, and we also actually interviewed a few caregivers. So I'll just be sharing a bit about what the caregivers shared. So I think apart from the stigma that Veena elaborated on just now, one thing that sort of a recurring challenge that I felt kept on popping up was a lot of caregivers felt like they were, in a way, neglecting their other responsibilities and their other roles that they had in their life because they were so focused on this caregiving role, which is not wrong, but I think something that the caregivers have shared that I felt really resonated with me is that they felt like they were neglecting their other children as well because they felt like they were focusing so much of their care on the loved one who was suffering from a mental illness. And I think this really resonated with me because my sister has been diagnosed with depression for about 10 years. And when I was a teenager, I really felt a bit resentful towards my own mom because I felt like she cared so much for my sister, but she, in a way, neglected me. I felt like she didn't really love me the same way and she didn't love me as much. But then recently we started to talk about whatever happened over the past 10 years, and she just shared that it doesn't mean that she loved us differently. We just had to have different kinds of love, I guess, because of this situation. And when I heard about the caregivers sharing about how they felt like they were neglecting their role as a mother for their other children, I felt like, yeah, this is a problem that some of the caregivers do face. And I feel like what we also hope to like tell these caregivers who we will be reaching out to in this campaign is that they're not any less of like a parent, or they're not, I guess, failures, and it's not like they failed any like expectations when they took on this caregiver role. It's just that they really do have to juggle all these responsibilities and all these other roles, and that's very really admirable of them.
I have incredible respect for them.
Sure.
I think recently there was a news about a father that took the lives of his kids, and there's also a discussion about special needs, and of course never ever to justify what he did, but it does highlight the challenge and the emotional burden of constantly having to care for someone. A lot of focus is on people with mental health conditions, rightly so, but in the ecosystem of recovery, a huge factor is the person providing the support. And a lot of times their needs are also neglected, and by extension, like Esther mentioned, the needs of their other ones they need to care for.
I think like what Esther said is so poignant. It actually reflects like how we at Cal look at them as hidden heroes. They carry a lot of burdens on themselves, but they don't actually take time to actually care for themselves. And like you said, they ignore all their other roles as well. That they are still an individual, they're still a mother, they're still a daughter, a friend, and so on. So they need to actually take time out to actually recharge themselves and renew themselves regularly, so that then they can actually be able to support others that actually need their support as well, not just the loved one with the mental health condition.
Okay, there's certain words that in your experiences, right, caregivers use a lot when they're describing their experiences to you, right? Whether is it judgment, helpless. I know you did a video of the lady, I can't remember her name. Cheryl, right? I think I connected with her. She's a very nice lady. She honestly shared her experiences. She used certain... but in general, is there... I'll link the video for you all to check out. I think it was a very meaningful short feature. But going back to this, right? Are there any themes or essence or words?
One key word, which is I always call it like a dirty word that caregivers don't want to talk about, is resentment, which is what Esther just pointed out earlier on as well. Because sometimes when they're just so focused on other people and especially their loved one who needs them, they actually are kind of self-sacrificing. So there is that resentment that can build up for them. So I always tell caregivers it's very normal to actually have such an emotion, and don't feel bad about it, because they have a lot of guilt as well about having such emotions in the first place, which I'm sure you might have gone through. So it's also knowing that it's okay to feel helpless as well. It's okay to feel guilty, and it's okay to still have fun. Because I think a lot of time they think, I need to be all suffering and I need to take this on. I can't have fun. I can't do things that I enjoy anymore. But that's not true at all.
Okay. Let me write it down and I'll discuss that a little bit. I feel that being a devil's advocate is going to be hard to have fun when someone is struggling so close to you. I'm sure you mentioned that for a reason. I think we discussed that a bit. But Esther, do you have anything to add? Any other words that you noticed?
I think another word, more like another feeling that I feel like the caregivers have highlighted is fear. And it's more like fear that their loved ones would never recover, because the recovery journey is really not linear. And sometimes even when their loved one has sort of been, I don't really want to use the word okay, but I guess more meant like emotionally stable for a longer period of time when the relapses happen. I think it's very hard on both the loved one and the caregiver. It feels like they've gone back to square one, which is really not the case, because I do feel like, there have been some improvements, but I think some caregivers have highlighted, they are fearful about, it's very morbid to say, but they are fearful about what would happen after the caregivers have like passed away. Like how would their loved ones like cope afterwards?
It is the same for people with special needs, right? It's exactly what's on their mind all the time. And with mental health conditions, it's also no different, because there's an element of their life is in an element of danger. When they say things, I want to take my life, or it's very triggering. And they're always wondering, like, or always on edge, like, being careful about where he is, what he's doing and everything.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
true. Yeah, let's talk about... actually, no, I want to explore this a little bit deeper because anyone who's listening, I just hope you all can really relate to this, get more awareness about this.
Yeah.
Media, briefly talk about the media. It seems to me that there's not much coverage, in-depth coverage about this topic. Do you feel that that's the case? Or am I being a bit too...
I think media, definitely there's not as much in-depth coverage. I think sometimes there's a lot of sensationalization of things that happen to people in different situations. So I guess that's how media operates to catch your attention and stuff like that. But sometimes I feel then the victim is the person who has the condition because they're actually stereotyped in a certain way. And it's usually quite a negative stereotype of them, being violent or being unstable and not trustworthy and things like that. So I think this is something that media could actually try and portray things in a more neutral manner, a more balanced way of actually people being portrayed. And I also personally feel like, as a person in recovery myself, that it's something that people need to understand that not all people who have a mental health condition are necessarily all those things. They are functioning and they're able to do things as what regular people do.
Yeah. What about also that definitely is part of it. But what about the caregiving element of it? Is there any coverage on that?
Nowadays, I think thankfully with organizations like myself and other caregiving organizations out there working closely with the media, there's been more positive coverage about the plight of what caregivers go through. But of course, more can be done. And more sort of emphasis and sort of incentives and benefits can be actually provided, I think, by the government or other sort of services as well, so that caregivers are actually taken care of in a better capacity as well.
Yeah. Is there anything on this when you're looking through the media stuff?
I think based on what we've researched, most of the media coverage, yes, there are a lot of organizations out there, like more than in the past, that sort of like cover caregivers and I guess mention caregivers, but even so, it's mostly caregivers of patients with dementia and Alzheimer's. Not so much about patients of children and youth who are suffering from mental health issues. And if we also talk about research, in fact, if I'm not wrong, the first nationwide survey on caregivers of patients who are suffering from mental health illnesses, it was only done late 2020. So for the first nationwide survey to only be done about a year ago, that's a bit... It really does show that I guess this is an area that needs to be like highlighted more. It's a really an underemphasized area.
And also the gap there is connection, right? Because a lot of coverage is just on the surface. It's just telling you, okay, this is the reality, and then this might be a point form of what you need to do, especially for a short form article in mainstream media. So it's no punch, there's no emotional.
There's no in-depth exploration of the emotional world of what the caregiver goes through. So I think that's why it's important that media actually does pick up more of these sort of stories and explores more in depth, like what Esther mentioned as well.
Well, actually give me an idea. I mean, I am in touch with some reporters who are passionate about this topic. Maybe I'll propose the idea to them. Maybe they'll do a cover series of caregivers. Yes. That'll be good. But till then, I guess we have this podcast and of course definitely for the work that you are doing. So I really appreciate it. Okay, I think one last question before we move into solutions is, what are some symptoms or things that signs that a caregiver could be needing help, that they need help or they're burning out? Because I find that some of them it's almost in denial that I don't need help with this.
I think you already pointed out one key sign, which is denial. If they are definitely in denial and they feel that, I don't need help, I don't want anyone to know about this and all that, and they're very closed up and withdrawn, that's actually a clear sign that they're moving towards burnout because they're just taking on too much on themselves. Another clear sign, I think, of burnout is when they become very silent, when they don't actually communicate with people around them. So they're actually carrying a lot of emotional load internally, and then, they're just not actually expressing, all the hurt or the challenges that they're actually facing. So that would be another sign.
Okay.
And I would say thirdly as well is that when they start sometimes getting a bit restless or acting out, like, maybe for little things they they get reactive, highly strung, because they are on the kind of tipping point, right? They're going to snap already because it's just too much for them to take. So it comes out in different ways for them. So I would say these are some of the common signs that people can start looking out for. And also a common question that I get is then, how do I tell the person that they need some help? So I would say it's like share your observations with the person. Don't tell them you're in burnout or you're doing this and it's not right, but actually just share your observations and your concern with the person, and just say, I'm here for you, and I'm just really wanting to see how we can work around this or work through this together.
Okay.
I think based on what I've also researched, I think some other common symptoms would be more like physical symptoms as well, like maybe sleep fluctuations, weight fluctuations. I think caregivers may prioritize caring for their ward over their own physical health, which will also result in them being exhausted all the time as well. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, so I think the last 20 minutes we explore the problem a little bit. I appreciate your authentic sharing, right? Just that alone is very valuable already. But we also want to talk about solutions and what we can do, what steps they can take beyond this. So maybe Esther, start with you first. We talk about the campaign, Prepare to Care. The name speaks for itself, right? But why did you choose this campaign and focus?
To be very honest, this wasn't our first topic for our FYP campaign. So at first we wanted to go for the digitalization of hawkers, because we realized that after the pandemic, this was a big problem for hawkers. They were sort of being left behind when the pandemic happened. So that aside, so one night our group kind of just came together, and somehow this topic just came up because we realized that all of us sort of had personal stories in relation to this topic. And because of that, this was a topic that really resonated with us, and we didn't really want to do a topic that I guess was easy. When I say easy, it's also because, like we mentioned earlier, there's really not much research out there about it, and that would actually make our life a bit harder when we embarked on this campaign. But because all of us really did have the heart for it, after we shared our personal stories with one another, we realized that the caregivers are really a group that we wanted to impact, and this is why we chose to embark on it.
Okay. Yeah. And also, why the target audience? You mentioned 9 to 19.
Yeah. Because firstly, these are very developmental years for I guess humans in general, which is why and also actually there's a very big number of youths that actually suffer from mental health issues. So some of the caregivers that we spoke to, some of their children were diagnosed from as early as the age of 7. So even though we feel like, they are still young, they don't really maybe know what's going on. But actually that's a very big misconception, because if I'm not wrong, Veena can correct me, I think 1 in 10 of this target audience actually do suffer from mental health issues.
Yeah, you're in the ballpark. It's actually 1 in 7, so it's actually more prevalent than actually we realize for young people especially.
I think I roughly read that somewhere in an article or somewhere. But personally as well, I work with youth almost every other day. I run a training company where I go to schools. In fact, this Jan, I went to about close to 10 schools, and it kind of hurts me to say this, but in large numbers it's predictable that in every class, in a large number, there will be people that struggle, and some of them have considered taking their lives, and some of them have attempted before. And so it might sound very morbid and very grave, but the reality is in a large number is predictable, and it's not even a huge number. It's only a few thousand, and it's really like that. So I can imagine almost on a national scale, it is a problem, something that now schools are also trying to focus more on, So I'm not sure if you have done research into that element. Maybe Esther can enlighten us. If not, of course, Veena can come in, right? But since you're talking about 9 to 19-year-olds, what are some of the gaps? Is the school providing that support? Is that part of the ecosystem? How do the parents come in? I'm sure you also have talked to them about school counsellors.
Like for us, we try and work more closely with the schools these
Yeah.
days as well, in terms of coming in, providing talks or workshops on mental health. I would still say it's still an underserved population because there are school counsellors, but from what I understand, there's only one school counsellor to, like you said, thousands of kids at a time. So they are not really getting that full attention on the needs being met as such. And I think the parents are not being engaged as much from my understanding of the ecosystem as well. So a lot of times the parents are just told when their child is in crisis, and I think a lot can be done more upfront as well to look out for the signs of them being in distress and so on, so that it can be more preventative care measures in place. And perhaps maybe Esther can elaborate more if there's been any research in that area.
Okay, I think we weren't able to research into this area because of some research constraints and
I think so too.
Yeah,
sure.
So we couldn't research into this area, but I can share from, you are right, there's actually only one counsellor to thousands of students. And I know this because this was the case when I was in school. So, but even if there is a counsellor in place, from what I remember, it wasn't a lot of people, because of stigma, they really, a lot of the kids didn't go to the counsellor. And it's very horrible to say, but whenever someone did, the whole class would know, and the person, that person would sort of be made fun of when they did that, and they would be called out for being attention seeking and just trying to skip class, which is really bad. And this really does prevent a lot of the students from reaching out. This was the case in my school last time.
That is a whole different topic altogether, right? It's insane because if you are listening to this and you are young, I wish I can say empathize with them fully, but it's not easy when you're in front of an entire class, right? And that is every single day you're going there. That's what you have to face, judgment every single day. It's not easy, but I guess the silver lining with that is now there's more awareness. I guess now you better cause, for lack of a better term, kids are more woke in that sense, and they're a bit less judgmental when it comes to such issues, I would say, compared to my time where I'm not very proud to say as well that I was one of those people that subtly judged people who went to see their counsellors, or they acted a bit funny, but I now know that they are struggling. Last time I didn't really know.
I would say anecdotally what I can share is that when we run the Young Caregivers program, I see a lot of young people who have big hearts actually, who actually are not caregivers yet themselves, but they actually just say, I want to support people, I want to understand more about what they're going through. And some of them, they come because they're actually caring for their friends. Like what you said, that peer support is so important. And there is really a lot of empathy and a lot of wholehearted support for their friends rather than judging them, like what you said. So they are very bold.
How to host? I did a couple of programs as well this gen about social empathy, holding space, and it's very heartwarming, really heartwarming to see that students are keen to learn, and the response has generally been good in the open-ended feedback. That they say that I always need to control myself because I always get emotional talking about this, right? Like they really genuinely, I can see from their heart, want to help their friends. And to have that's why the work that you are doing is so important. Because if they really do have it, a bit of the extra insight and extra help, you can go a long way. You
can literally save a life. You can literally save a life.
Esther, one last question for you on your campaign, right? You talk about the videos you have made a little bit. I thought it was interesting. And what are some of the responses from there?
I think so far we've interviewed a caregiver, Cheryl, and we've also interviewed Ron, who is the mental health CEO.
Oh yeah, Ron.
Yeah.
Sorry for my outburst of excitement. And even the camera's excited as well. But yeah, Ron's an amazing guy. I interviewed him on the podcast before as well. Yeah, I met him once in person. He grew his channel, Mental Health CEO, you can check it out. He grew his channel quite a broad audience. Yeah.
Okay, so we interviewed Cheryl, and I think she's really a very, very brave caregiver. So I was actually the one who interviewed her initially for the primary research, and I really liked what she shared, and she really shared very genuinely and very openly about all the struggles that she's been through. And so she's actually a caregiver for quite a number of people, and she's really very brave. And I think I don't really know how to phrase it, but part of the reasons why I feel like she's been, I guess, so not really good at caregiving, but I guess she's just been very successful. Is that the correct word? I like caregiving is also because she received a lot of peer support. She really reached out to like all the organizations. She reached out to CAL. She reached out to her faith organization to really just get all the support that she needed to care for everyone that needed help. So she really shared about her story very genuinely and openly, and that was really amazing. And we really got quite good responses for that on IMH's Facebook page. And for Ron's video, Ron shared about his struggles with his mental illness. So Ron actually suffers from OCD. Yeah, so he shared about that, and he shared about how he feels like a caregiver could help to support like their own loved ones who are suffering from mental illnesses.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was very absorbed in what you were saying, so I just suddenly forgot that I'm hosting. But yeah, I think it's important, especially Cheryl. I reached out to her after watching her video, and I thought it was interesting that she was so open to sharing. Wondering also a bit about why was there any trigger at the start that allowed her to overcome that judgment or that barrier, or was there any barrier? I feel like that insight could maybe help someone that is also in her position at this moment.
I think from what Esther shared, I'm kind of blown away.
Caregiver as well. Oh, yes. So yeah, she came here to seek help as well.
Yeah, I think that's really, for me, I would say it's really smart caregiving, because it's really reaching out to all the support systems, getting all the resources, and really, like, I would say, arming yourself against this sort of battle, right? This ongoing battle with your loved one's mental health condition. So I would say it's really smart that she equipped herself so well, and she was most willing. And I think it's that willingness to seek support, which is, I hope, what anyone out there who's hearing will be actually kind of like losing that fear or that face value that we have in our society about seeking help. And it's perfectly fine to just say that, I need help. And the more you are equipped and you actually empower yourself in that way, the better you are able to support your loved one as well. So you're doing actually a service to your loved one by actually seeking help.
Okay. On that, I think you answered most of the questions I was going to ask you already about what actions they can take, right? Yeah. But in terms of concrete wise, is there any, where can they seek help?
So they can definitely look for us here at Caregivers Alliance Limited. We're the only agency that actually supports caregivers of loved ones with mental health conditions, regardless of the age as well. They can also seek help from other agencies that are supporting their loved ones. There are agencies such as Silver Ribbon, Singapore Association for Mental Health, Limitless, and so on, and the list goes on. There are actually a lot of agencies out there for their loved ones, but for Caregivers Alliance, we're the main one. And of course, if you're caring for people with dementia and so on, there are also other agencies out there that you can look out for. But I would say primarily, please do look for us and actually do come to us, and we're here to support you throughout your journey, as I mentioned.
Yeah, I genuinely hope the podcast does two things, right? One is to help people feel connected, that this is not something they should be ashamed of. Yeah. And the second thing is our appeal to you is to click on the link and just drop them a call, right? It's not difficult. Just drop them a call and ask what do they have to provide. How can they help? And I hope Veena has probably represented Cal in a very, very nice way. They're all very kind people. Yeah. Non-judgmental people are willing to hold space for you. And that's their role as well over here. So, do reach out if you need. Even in my journey, my parents were a huge support for me. And it's only because they were open to seeking help and supported me that I'm even able to function today, I would say. Yeah. I know that apart from, of course, reaching out to Caregivers Alliance, there is something you can sign up for. If you're listening to this before 19 Feb, Esther, you want to talk to us about that?
Okay, so our group has actually, we're going to host a webinar on 19 Feb at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. It's a webinar called Caregiving with Confidence. So this webinar would actually have Dr. Ong. So Dr. Ong is the Senior Consultant and Chief of the Department of Developmental Psychiatry at IMH. We'll also have Tim, who is the head of Caregivers Alliance.
Executive Director.
Yes. Then we'll also have Kevin, actually. Kevin.
Sorry, which Carrie are you talking about? Carrie, that's me. Oh yes, me. Yeah, I'll be there. I'm just happy to be there.
Yeah, so Kevin will actually be part of the panel as well. So we'll have Cheryl, who is the caregiver that we actually mentioned just now. And also apart from that, there'll be Prashant. So we'll actually be filming another video with Prashant, who is another caregiver who is really very open to share about his journey as a caregiver. And I think most of the time as well, we kind of not really stereotype, but we also assume that genders of caregivers very often. And when we talk to the experts as well, they also mentioned that a lot of mothers feel the need to give up their jobs as a caregiver. So I think hearing from Prashant, who is a male caregiver, will really be a different perspective as well. So that would be really interesting. So this event, like I mentioned earlier, it will be on 19th Feb on 10 a.m. And anyone can sign up using the bit.ly link, bit.ly / you link it, okay, yeah, then that's perfect.
Is it recorded in case people can't wake up or not? They should wake up, but not live event, is it? Okay, we'll see what we can do. So do come live. I really cannot see. Maybe I'll record it on my end or something for you, but we will see what we can do. But do come if let's say you're listening before 19th Feb. I mean, there's so many other things to explore, so little time today, but I do hope this gives you an additional knowledge and also inspiration. Last question before we conclude today. Any practical steps or messages that you'd like to share with caregivers beyond just broadly seeking help?
I would say really care from your heart, not your head. I think a lot of time in Singapore, we've been so taught to think through our problems.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes it's actually coming from your heart space instead and trying to have that empathy that we've been talking a lot about that's important. And also just being very careful in how you choose your words as well. Our loved ones are sensitive at times. I do know from personal experience. But just be a bit mindful about the words that we use. Try and choose them with care. Try and choose them with love when we communicate with our loved ones. And I think they will actually appreciate that quite a bit and will reciprocate accordingly.
Okay.
I think for me, I just want to let the caregivers know that they shouldn't blame themselves. They shouldn't spend a lot of time thinking that, okay, this is all their fault, or they could be better, or they could have done better. I think caregivers should realize that whatever has happened is really just is in the past already. Like, things cannot be changed. So as a caregiver in right now, they should really just focus more on caring for the loved one and listening and loving and providing support rather than just keep on harping on the past. And I know it's much easier said than done, but I really do believe that they would really benefit from this as well.
Yeah, and I think my own message would be two things, right? Number one is take time for yourself as well. I think that would be the message for you. Take time for yourself as well, because in the journey of caregiving, overused phrase, but in this context, it really does apply. That your cup has to be full before you can give. And if, let's say, you take it too hard on yourself, both emotionally and physically, it could be a case where you also struggle and then it make it more difficult for caregiving. So just know that you're doing a good job and you're doing the best that you can, really. So just take time for yourself. And I think the second message is that as dark as it might seem sometimes, because I can share this from my heart, because my parents went through this for a couple of months when I was struggling with my own depression. I completely changed to 180 degrees and really struggled. I was sometimes calling my mom at work. She was at work and I was calling her, telling her that, oh mom, I want to take my own life. And it was really, really stressful for her emotionally. She lost a lot of weight then also. But I think as a family, we just kept the faith somehow. Hope is a small thing, but it's very powerful as well. So I do hope that through this podcast, through our experiences, you still gives you a little bit of that hope to cling on to in your journey. And I believe that one day you look back and understand why you had to go through it, and also that your struggle becomes a story and a strength for someone else. Yeah, so thank you all for listening, right? And for watching, if you're watching this on YouTube. But yeah, I think with that we come to the end of this podcast. Thanks again, y'all, for joining me in Caregivers Alliance for sponsoring this venue as well.
Yeah, happy to have you. Thank you for having us as well.
Okay, great. Okay, I'll see you all at the event, or of course you can subscribe to the podcast for more episodes on mental health related topics, resilience, And yeah, I have no proper ending as usual, but we'll see you next time, okay? Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.